Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Minnesota Rockstars podcast. And on this week's episode, we have with us myself, your host, Joe Call, and a member of the Minnesota Rockstars, and that is Pete Oldakowski. And he is here to kind of inform us on some of the issues that they've been having on their property, and that is dealing with trespassers. I know way back when his grandparents owned the property, they were dealing with trespassers, and now it's his turn to deal with the trespassers. And he's going to kind of give us some of the background stories of some of these trespassers that have been on the property and what they've been doing, whether it's been trespassing in their gravel pit or on the hunting property themselves or itself. It's interesting what people will end up doing to go to the extremes, but it's just good podcasts on what you need to make sure you have as far as information goes if there's a trespasser on your property, and what steps you should take if you end up catching somebody on your property. So if you're a person that deals with it, this would be a good one for you guys to listen to, or if there's somebody that you know of that is dealing with trespassers, it wouldn't be a bad idea to share this podcast with them. And with that, we're going to get to some of our announcements here, and then we'll get going with the podcast. Hey, if you're like us, you're getting ready for that upcoming hunting season. The one thing we always want to make sure of is that we have the best apparel possible to keep us out in the woods longer. And we've been paired up with Arctic Shield ever since the beginning. And what they want to do for you guys, the listeners, is give you a discount code to get you 20% off of everything on their website, which is arcticshieldоutdoor.com. And if you use the code RACK20, that's RACK20, you'll be able to get 20% off everything on their website. So take advantage of this offer right now. Well, if you're looking for a gift or just something for yourself, Minnesota Rockstars related, I'll tell you what, you need to check out our clothing store that we have. The link is on our social media platforms and on our website, where you can go to it and order some sweet Minnesota Rockstar swag and accessories. I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, when things are winding down, I'm going to put on a movie or watch some sports on TV. The first thing I do is I get into my Minnesota Rockstar sweatpants and sweatshirt because it is so comfortable. And that's the thing, like, if you got a shirt or pants or whatever that are comfortable, you know what I'm talking about. And this fits it to a T, and I am not joking around. This stuff is so comfortable, and that's why we're going to continue to keep this store open online, because it's a great product, everything that they put out. And why don't you guys check it out, and I guarantee you you'll like what you have on. So with that, we're going to get to the podcast here. Thanks for listening. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
All right. We got our mic checks out of the way. All right, we're ready to rock here. I am enjoying a beautiful evening here outside on his brand new deck that Toma Gertz?
Yep.
Is it, which one's first?
It's Toma Gertz.
Toma Gertz did for you here, and it's not like you to have other people do the work for you here, but somebody had to step up in this situation. I'm sitting here with Pete Oldakowski, good buddy of mine, and like I said, we're sitting on his deck outside. The bugs aren't too bad yet.
Nope.
But we're sitting on this deck, and the reason why somebody else had to build this for you is because you're kind of laid up yet, aren't you?
Yep, for a while yet.
So what do you got going on? What did you have done?
I had rotator cuff surgery March 27th. So it's gonna be a long road. I'm hoping to be back full strength by bow season, but it's gonna be really, really close.
Have you asked them about your restrictions yet as far as
bow
hunting goes?
They said it'll be very, very close.
Really?
So I'm hopeful. I mean, even if it doesn't be, first part of September, hopefully by we hit mid-October, hopefully I'll be back.
So why don't you tell people what you do for a living and how this has kind of handcuffed you?
I do construction. I've been doing it for 17 years. We pour concrete, build chicken barns for Pilgrim's Pride. So it's a real labor-intensive job, and it's a lot of overhead work. So it wears on you pretty hard, and I'm starting to feel it, even though I haven't hit 40 yet, but I'm already feeling the pain from it.
It's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're driving around central Minnesota and you see a chicken barn,
don't blame me. I just build them. I don't put them there.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. I'll be down by Richmond and wherever. I mean, up north even. Back in the day, you guys weren't putting barns up where I live.
Right.
You guys were kind of staying south, but you kind of expanded a little bit north, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah, with a lot of the watershed issues and that kind of stuff, they're starting to expand the whole thing because it's, they're concerned about really pollution into the water.
Sure.
With that much manure and all that stuff. So it's getting harder to get them in certain areas. They're getting overpopulated. And you also got to watch out for bird flu, so they don't want them all packed together.
Yeah. I worked on the crew with Pete for, was it 2 years?
Yep.
And I was fine with everything. I mean, it's pretty labor intensive.
Yeah.
When we're going to be pouring footings, how long are the barns?
624.
624 feet.
Yep.
So we're using mauls and stakes to pound in to get your forms laid out, and trying to pound those through rocks
all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's tough. But the toughest part for me was just being off the ground on the roofs. I had a bad experience when we were pounding purlins on one time. It wasn't too good.
How's the finger?
Well, my finger's doing fine, my pointer finger, but I had a memory and a little PTSD because I smashed my pinky a couple weeks ago. So I was like, this isn't even bad. We were on a barn and we were nailing purlins onto the rafters. And we were just about to the end. I think I had 2 purlins left, and I was the slow guy in the crew. I don't know if that was my first year or second year, but most of the guys have been doing it for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So they're walking around on those rafters and purlins like you're walking on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I'm hanging on for dear life, trying not to fall off. And so I'm 2 purlins behind. I'm just about done, and I couldn't get this nail to go through because what happened was the purlin didn't reach all the way to the rafter.
Yep.
So I had to put a block in there to kind of extend that rafter a little bit. And I was swinging away at this extra block that I was putting in there, and that nail wasn't going in. So what do? You swing harder, right? Well, eventually I swung and missed, and I smashed my pointer finger really bad. And
I'm pretty sure you broke it, right?
Yeah, it was broken, and it was brutal. But this one here that I smashed the other day on a water hydrant, it actually started bleeding right away, so that pressure wasn't there, so it didn't hurt.
That helps a lot.
Oh my Lord, the one I hit with the hammer, that guy there, he didn't relieve any pressure. I had to go into the hospital later that night, and they had to drill a little hole in there to release the pressure because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so enough of work talk. That's not what we're here for. We're here to talk some hunting. First of all, I've done this with quite a few guests before. I don't think you've ever explained to everybody or kind of gave people your first hunting memory on the podcast. You've been on a few times already, but if you're thinking back at your first hunting memory or outdoor memories, what are some things that come to mind?
I mean, family, number one. That's how it all started. My grandparents had just shy of 800 acres up in Hillman, so we were always fortunate enough to go up there and be able to hunt their land. And, it started out as all rifle. Nobody bow hunts. It was just rifle. And I remember my first year, everybody usually sat with, like, grandma or grandpa their first time. And I was sitting with my grandma, and she let the lead fly. If something came out, she's emptying the gun. And she had the ear flappers, so every time the gun would go off, her ear flaps would go up. And she shot a .308 Browning semi-automatic, and they had to cut the buttstock down because she's only about 100 pounds. So I had to cut it down, and we were sitting on her stand, which is probably one of our best stands on the property still. And there was a doe at probably 350 yards. And I'm like, Grandma, can I shoot? She's like, no, that's too far. Finally, I talked her into it, so I let her rip, and she was going to back me up. So as soon as I shot, she just started letting it rip. And the next thing I know, I'm down in a ball in the corner of the stand, and there's just shells hitting me, and I was scared shitless. And she's like, I don't think you hit it. Well, we found it the next week. We still did deer drives back then, and we found it the next week. But, that's kind of one of the reasons I don't like taking long shots with the smaller caliber, because I was shooting a 243 at the time. And I hit it right through the lungs, but you don't have much of a blood trail at that distance. So, but yeah, that when grandma looked down at me, she said, "What are you doing down there?" And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I just froze up, and she just starts laughing. She's like, "You got to keep shooting, Peter." So that was my first memory. That was pretty cool. So
kind of explain. I mean, like you said, it's one of the best spots on the farm. Kind of explain how that setup is, your grandma's stand.
So it's actually right behind, like, their house and buildings are to the west of it, and it's actually the closest stand to the buildings. There's a big, like, little bluff, so to speak, for our area that we set the stand on, and it overlooks like a 3-acre field that's in the middle of the woods. It's all tall grass. They love crossing it. There's bedding on both sides of it. At the end of it, it is only like 50 yards wide, probably, with woods before it hits the swamp. So it kind of pinches down. But it's just a natural buck area. When you get in off of this little green field, we call it the green field. It's just so thick. There's down trees. You pretty much got to crawl through there to get through to find anything in there. So it's just a natural good spot. I mean, there's everything in there. There's swamp. There's oaks, everything.
And it just sits basically flat on the ground. It's not elevated, right?
Nope.
It just sits there,
Yep.
but you're up on a big bluff, so you're able to just look down on top of
Yes.
everything. That is a really good spot. Did she shoot a really nice buck off there one time?
Yes.
What would you say that one scores roughly?
That one's probably almost 160. I'd
Yeah.
say. Pretty close.
That's a pretty solid deer.
She wasn't even gonna mount it. So I said, "You got to mount it." "I'm not mounting that. There's no deer going in my house." So then I mounted it for her, and I said, "When you pass away, I want the mount." Well, and when the mount came back, "You can have it. I don't even want it." So I got that mount, and that one was one that we Ryan Zupan and I, he was a neighbor. We chased that one for a long time. So.
There's a lot of critters up in that neck of the woods, and we've had our fair share of timber wolves up there too, haven't we?
Yes, there's no shortage of them. Not at all.
That one time we went up there, it was late season. There was snow on the ground, and there ended up being more wolf tracks than deer tracks. There wasn't a single. I remember going up there. There wasn't a single deer track on the property.
Yep.
And how many acres is it?
Just under 800.
Yeah, and we were going everywhere, and the only tracks that were out there were wolf tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And the first timber wolf I've ever seen was with you in the stand one time.
Yeah, we should get on that story. That one's a good one.
Oh man, we were on the stand. It was early season.
Yep.
And we were sitting in the stand together. We were filming, and all of a sudden we heard something coming across the field, and it was a dead calm night. And I would say it had to be 200 yards away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we could hear something coming through the swamp. We're like, get ready, there's a deer coming out. And we're bow hunting. And all of a sudden, it steps out. I'm like, it's a coyote. And all of a sudden, I look in. I'm like, that's a timber wolf. And it was a big gray timber wolf. Yep. Steps up out of the swamp onto the hayfield, and sits down and starts scratching itself.
Yep, I remember it very, very, very clearly.
That was a huge wolf. I actually have the footage of it on my phone yet, and it's so distorted because it was old school video camera, and then it was filmed with an old phone off the TV.
Yep.
But anyways, this big gray wolf comes out, and it sits down, starts scratching itself, and it gets up and it shakes itself. And we look behind, and once you know it, there's two big black wolves.
Yes.
Jet black wolves walking right behind it on the back side of the woods.
You remember what you did?
I ran.
No.
In the end, I ran.
There's more to this story. This is a good one. So Joe's filming. I was hunting. And so they get out on the field, and Joe hit, I don't know if it was a deer bleed or a fawn or whatever it was. And we're on it's a 33-acre field with a big point on it. And we're sitting in a gap of woods there. And Joe hits a deer bleed, and they instantly just spread out and start hunting. And, of course, they hunt back to where we're going to have to walk out,
They
right?
half-mooned into the wind. They split up evenly. Like one went furthest, the other one went in the middle, and the other one stayed. And they half-mooned around into the standing corn and we're like, uh-oh. I mean, it was starting to get dark out, and I'm like, we better get out of
Yep,
here.
yep. And then I said, I think I remember saying something. I don't even want to get out of the stand, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, something along that. I'll say it. He's like, come on, you pussy. So Joe starts going down the ladder first. He gets halfway down. He looks up at me. Give me your knife. I'm like, oh really, really? Here we go. Now here's the truth. But that was a good memory. I'll never forget that one. And the walk back was, I mean,
Yeah.
with a bow, and we walk a quarter mile, and you're walking through dense woods, and with a stick in your hand, it's not makes you a little nervous, I guess.
Think about this up there. How many times you've walked to a stand in the middle of the night in the dark, whether it's morning or night, and you've had Timberwolves watch you up there walk by. And
Oh
go to your
man,
stand. You know what I mean?
I'm sure there's times before we really, I guess now I pay attention more when on my walks in, but back in the day when I wasn't scared of nothing, I would go all the way to my stand in the dark without a headlamp on, nothing. And now, even the last couple of years, we have so many. And I took my son last year, and when we were going into my stand, I was kind of putting my light around. This was rifle season, and once you know it, we were almost to the stand, and I just see two eyes looking at me, and I'm like, all right, let's just keep going, And at least I had a rifle with me, so you feel a little better. But I have my 6-year-old with me, so I was a little more concerned. And then and it was only 150 yards away, and we had to keep walking towards them. And then we took a left, and before I went in that woods, my stand, I was like, I only got 100 yards, 150 yards into the woods, and I was walking backwards, shining the light the whole way. And at that point, you don't really care about scaring the deer away, because if there's wolves there ain't gonna be. I mean, a headlamp ain't gonna bother.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think you had a collared one running around last year, didn't you?
We had a collared one for about 2.5, 3 years. Yeah.
Female too, right? 'Cause
Yep.
had pups
Yep.
with it.
She had puppies for 2 years straight. She had puppies, 4 to 5 pups.
I think I've gotten a few trail camera photos of that one that
Oh
you
yeah,
sent my way.
she was daily. She liked getting her picture taken.
You get a lot of daylight pictures of those things. Don't you?
Tons of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy. So that property you've been talking about, it has now transitioned from your grandparents.
Yep.
To yourself and your sister, correct?
Yep. Half of it. Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the adjustments you've made to that property to kind of spice it up a little bit. I know when I was out there hunting it with you, we always talked about, man, it'd be cool to do X or Y or Z or whatever. You've done a lot to that property. Let us hear some of the major changes that you've done to that property that you've seen nice payback in return for all the hard labor.
I mean, one of the craziest ones that I guess this one actually shocked me more than the rest of them. So there's a 5-acre field that was south of like my block of woods that's one of my best spots. That I was always in corn, and I decided to put pine trees in there, and we planted about 6,000 pine trees in there. They're slow start because it's been dry the last couple of years, but we have pretty good growth coming in now. But the amount of movement that I had just leaving that sit technically in like a CRP grass of what grew up, we have so much deer movement through there. It's absolutely insane.
Really?
And I didn't do anything besides put the pines in there, and now it's just grass. And we found like 4 or 5 sheds out of there now.
So we found that deadhead this last year?
Right by it, yep.
Jeez.
Right by it. The other thing I've done is, food plots. I've put in pine trees on the property lines to kind of block things in. Eventually, when they get bigger, there'll be some really good pinch points. We did some cutting. I did some cutting in the woods for a bedding area. That's growing up nice. And then we did like a 3 or 4 acre block 2 years ago. We did a clear cut on that. And we got like, I don't know, 8 to 10 feet of growth last year on it. You've pretty much got to cut it down and turn around and look the other way because it looks like hell. But it's just been a lot of, more stand placement, more work to, plan for your access points and, that kind of stuff. That's really made a difference. I've, taken some of the some of the fields away from the farmers, so I have food up there all year, which has been a big deal. I've seen a lot of improvement with just overall deer herd, not even just bucks. I've had a lot more deer that stay there, and they stay all winter. So it's been a process, and then putting up a lot more stands and just kind of getting to figure out the property. You hunt it your whole life, and there's still all of a sudden you walk it like this spring. All of a sudden there's like 3 more spots. I'm like, okay, there we go. I got that's my next year's project is to figure out which way they're moving through there, and it's a lot of land, so you can only focus on so many points at one time, right? You only have so much time, so you can't just put up 12 stands and say, oh, yep, we're good to go. Well, it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of work that goes into it. You don't want to cut the whole woods down. One thing I've noticed, we have a lot of box stands because I'm a builder. So I've built a lot of enclosed stands, so the weather, the kids can come with me, all that stuff. One thing that I've noticed that I really am working on this year compared to years past is is just strategically putting them box stands and I got kind of guilty of it the last 3 or 4 years where you just pop it in there and the deer can't see you in there, but they can.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have it high enough, you don't have the side of the stand to block you. So, and I've noticed in a couple of my stands that I've just taken out and just literally plopped them in the middle of the woods and right in the middle of the brush and let it grow up. I've never been busted.
Really?
Never. Like my secret spot, I call it. I've never been busted in there. That's literally set in, and then about 25 yards of it's all brush, and I just cut the tops off, and then there's a food plot.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. It was actually going to be the next question. You have this spot called the secret spot. When we were up there hunting together, we never once touched it. That area.
Right.
Tell me how this secret spot come about, and kind of explain to people kind of like what you were just starting to do. Let people know what that setup looks like, because the very first time you went in there, you had a hell of an encounter, didn't you?
Yeah. Yes, I did. And part of it is that there's a lot. I didn't own the property for most of my life, so I've only owned. Me and my wife bought a 160. And then we bought a 210 with my brother-in-law and my sister. So it kind of limited me to what you can and can't do because you don't own the property. So you can't just, go cut a road through or do this or that, because my grandparents they didn't really care for that. It was their land, it was their rules, their way, or the highway. So, that was, you kind of learn. But so I started doing a lot more walking once I got when I actually owned it. And I had it in the back of my mind a few times. We walked back there. Actually, your brother Mark was with me one time, and we found just a huge rubs. I mean, there's trees. It was crazy, but we didn't want to go all the way to the north point because that's what they're bedding, and they're all coming in right there.
Sure.
So I wanted to figure out how to get there, get as close to that as I could without, because you got to walk through a lot of woods to get there. Mm-hmm. So I was walking it, and then all of a sudden you walk the right path the one day, and it was on the east side of the block of woods, and it's like the hill just drops down. So when you're walking, and your head is pretty much like looking at the bottom of the floor. So I just took my skid loader and I started brush mowing in there, and then I walked around, kind of found a little bit of a high ground, and then I tried to pinch it down on both sides so I can see both ways, and make them kind of want to come through there. And I cleared it out, and I planted hot chicken there the first year from Domain, and it was, I think I got lucky, but it was crazy good. I never put a camera. That was in March. I think I mowed it twice that year. I never went in there all year. But I knew I just had that feeling it was going to be good. Got everything in early. And then it was October 2nd, I believe. And I do construction, so I got off late, and it was 3 o'clock. And I had northwest wind, and just Perfect. It was a big cold front. And I texted my wife, girlfriend at the time, but my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go bow hunt tonight. I got to get there. She's like, you're never going to make it because it's dark at whatever, 6:30 or something like that. And so I was driving like 80 all the way to my house. Got my stuff. I don't even think I showered that night, which is not my MO. And I was like, I just got to get in there. So, I get up there and I'm running. I run all the way in there, get set up. And it was a beautiful night. Got set up, and I think I was only in there 20 minutes or a half hour. And I seen legs coming through the woods, and I'm like, really? And I had no idea what to expect because I had no cameras, I had no intel. And when that deer walked out, I was like, I'd shot a lot of nice bucks before this with my bow and with my rifle, and I'm like, really? Like this is where we're at right now, This is what you do it all for. And he came into the plot, and he was just eating, and he was quartering to me at like 30 yards, and my adrenaline just kept going, and pretty soon, he turned just a little bit, and he was still like quartering to me, and I pulled back and I shot, and I was like, it's a terrible shot. I mean, you shouldn't take quartering. I don't take quartering to, personally, and he wasn't going anywhere, but the buck fever got the best of me, honestly. And I shot, and I was instantly like, what are you doing? Like,
sure.
it just like it came back to reality, and I was like, what was that? Like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
And luckily, I clean missed him. And then he went off the plot, and there's another trail at like 33 yards that goes along the left side. And I'm like, and he's standing in there. He had no idea what happened. And all of a sudden he starts walking. I'm like, oh, get another arrow. Because I'm like, oh, he's going to give me another shot.
Yeah.
So I knocked another arrow. He came in, and he was broadside at 33. And I got footage of that one.
Yep.
And, the only thing we can think of that it was a little bit low, but I hit him really hard. And he went about 40 yards, and then he started walking, and he stopped at like 62, and he was just standing there. And I still regret till this day, and I tell people this all the time, like, if you hit that buck or that deer really hard, I'd shoot him in the ass, because like we never did find that buck, but he's dead. I mean, we let him sit for 18 hours. We had blood the whole time. We had pools of blood. We never did find him. He's never been back, so he died. And I think you owe it to the animal a little bit too. But I really thought that when he stopped at 62, I thought he was going to tip over.
Right.
I really did. I thought there's no doubt in my mind. I was like, everything was good. I wasn't freaking out anymore. But that was quite the whirlwind of I had shot a ton of deer with you. We had been in Wisconsin, over the years, and I was always, really stone cold when it came to killing deer.
Yep.
Target shooting, I always sucked compared to you. But, when it came to killing, I was just, I never got flustered. And that one, and that's why we hunt too. I mean, I guess if every time's just that easy, then, I don't know what you're hunting for either, but it was a true thing, and I like to share that story, even though at first it was hard to share the story because you're really upset. You work hard, you practice all the time, and then all of a sudden you just do completely something against your ethics pretty much, right? Like even after the first shot, I was very upset with myself. And when I got the second shot, I had already forgot about it completely, but now I don't forget about it because it was, I never got the deer. But
I love the footage of it, because what was so cool to me, and it really helped me connect the dots on food plot strategies, was just having something that is green when everything is turning brown. And that's what that hot chick plot was. I mean, in the background, everything is brown, and that buck steps right out into that green, lush hot chick plot.
Yeah, Domain's got a lot of good products, and I'll tell you right now that hot chicks, that's my number one, really.
We're sitting right next to a hot chick plot, right next to his
house.
I
kind of, my wife's seen the bill from Domain. She was like, what are you doing this year? I was like, a lot. But I put in about 4 acres of hot chick total this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, the stuff in the secret spot is absolutely booming this year again.
Yep.
And the only thing is when you do them micro plots in the woods, hot chick does really well. It really does. The only thing I've found that I've had a hard time with, and it doesn't matter what seed company or what you're planting, is that like I've had hot chick do really well like 2 years in a row in this woods, but it's heavy. Like it's really dense in there. And I actually am gonna replant every year.
Oh,
And it's the part of the problem is I get so much leaf cover
foliage. Yep.
that it chokes it out.
Sure.
And if you don't get in there, like you should
Early.
probably be blowing it off before freeze up
Sure.
after the leaves are off. Kind of my opinion, but
Okay.
now it's like you get such a fresh growth. I mean, and there is a couple. I have one hot chick plot that is 6 years old now.
Really?
Yep. I actually let it go to seed. So if you ever let one go, it gets about this tall and it gets purple flowers.
So 4 foot?
Yeah, probably
4 foot.
Yeah.
Holy
And
Lord.
I let it go during the drought year because I didn't want to mow it because
Yeah.
I got sandy ground.
Yep.
And then I mowed it off in the spring and we were right back at her.
Wow. That's one little project that I have going on right now is I have a hot chick plot. It's, I don't know, 1/4 acre maybe. And I was hearing people talk about, well, should you mow it or shouldn't you mow it or spray it, this, that. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to mow this half and let's see what it looks like in comparison to the other half, which I'm not going to mow.
Yep.
And we'll see what the difference is. So I'm curious to see what that looks like as time goes on. One thing I wanted to transition to here, Pete, when you bought this property here, one thing I did want to touch on is that I think a big X factor on your property too, and I don't know if you mentioned water holes that you've dug. How big of a factor those have been for you? I know Chantel, we have a video out there with Chantel shooting her.
Yep.
Was that her first year?
Yep.
With the bow?
Yep.
Shoots it right over the top of a water hole, and that thing just plops right over
Dude,
dead.
she smoked it. That was ridiculous. I was
That was
like,
awesome.
really? Yeah, that was great footage. That was
awesome.
Yep.
But
yeah, water, man. I hear this all the time now. Like since I started digging all these ponds, I've gotten people are like, "Why are you digging ponds? Why are you digging water holes? Why are you putting a water source in?" And everybody says they have water. They have all the water they need. You live in Minnesota. They got all the swamp water they need. Okay. Would you rather go drink water out of your faucet or drink it out of the toilet?
I'm not going to the toilet.
Right. I mean, it's clean water is a proven thing. With if you read a lot about whitetails or any animals, their number one thing over mineral food source water, clean water. Why do you think there's huge bucks down by river bottoms? All that stuff. They have clean water.
Yeah.
And I kind of always knew that. We did quite a few little water holes in Wisconsin where we lease. But that's a whole different world out there. So you don't really know, and Wisconsin doesn't have swamps. They don't have water sources. They
have ridges. A lot of things run off.
But they don't have anything that really holds water. So that's always kind of been a thing that people put in, runoff ponds and all this stuff.
Right.
And then I dug, actually Dave Sayre from Piers I have a gravel pit in my land. So he needed some clay. So I told him, well, I kind of strategically planned where I wanted it. And there's clay down there. So he dug the water hole. And the first year I've never seen bucks like that on my property. It was absolutely insane. I had, 12 to 14 different bucks coming to the water all summer, and it was just crazy. And then it kind of dried up on us, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna dig it deeper. So I dug it deeper, and it's literally, if you go up there right now, even with the rainy year, there's just highways going to it. And so we've dug two now, pretty good ponds. They're a half acre. So you don't need to go that big. You can dig one 10 by 10 long as it's always got water in it.
Yeah.
But it's a game changer. I think, if I had an endless amount of money, I'd have 20 of them on my property, honestly, because they all go there.
So you just mentioned that you have a gravel pit on your property. And that's going to lead us into our next topic, which is I wanted to be our main topic tonight, and that is trespassers. You have dealt a lot with trespassers throughout the years. They were trespassing back when your grandparents owned it. Talk to me a little bit about what people are doing when there's trespassing, because I think there's there's two separate types of trespassers that you have. Some that are going, well, maybe even three. Some that are going into the gravel pit, looking for things in the gravel pit. Some are looking to take things from you, and other people have camouflage on.
Right.
What am I wrong?
Yeah,
Or is
no. Well, actually, not camouflage.
Okay.
Orange.
Orange. Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't have any of the. I don't have any of the camos. They're just orange. They're not scared.
So start with the people that walk to the gravel pit for gravel reasons.
Yeah, it's a crazy battle with that. It's been pretty upsetting. It's pretty it's sometimes you don't even feel comfortable going up there by yourself, I mean, from where we enter the gravel pit gate, it's, a mile and a half back to my farthest field, but yeah, once you have a gravel pit, everybody thinks that everyone's going to look for agates. So they're always in there. People are always in there looking for agates, and then they see some of your equipment or the the farmer that rents from me. He left some of his equipment out, and they stole from him. So it's been just an uphill battle. It's unfortunate because these people don't really care. They come during the middle of the day. I guess I've had them walking their dogs at 2:30 in the morning. So I don't know what's really going on. It's a tough battle. But people just feel entitled, kind of. If you have, and I'm kind of in the wrong, and the gravel pit really attracts them.
Yep.
That's a big thing. So I think some of them drive in there because the gate's open. They drive in there.
They think it's public ground.
And they don't really care, and it's there's a couple guys that I had 5 this spring that were coming through my uncle's property because so the south side, I have an easement road through my uncle's 160 acres, and we don't have that side gated, and it's just a free for all. They just come through there, or they come down the snowmobile trail, and we caught a few of them on trail camera this year, and we had the Morrison County Sheriff out there, and I had actually drove up there. It rained that day. I seen their tracks, so we were driving down the road, and I seen the truck. It's a neighbor, and so I called the sheriff and went and talked to him. What were you doing on their property? Oh, I was just I was gonna ask the farmer to pick agates. Well, I was planting my corn for my food plots, so they drove in, and they seen me, and they ripped out of there. And he goes, "So have you seen the farmer? He was up there planting. Why didn't you talk to him?" Oh, he looked busy. I didn't want to ask him. Of course, So that's been a battle. We are gonna put up gates on the south side now, and we are gonna actually fence. We're gonna put a barbed wire fence up, or we probably won't do barbed, but we'll do just a woven wire fence along there, just so they can just drive their vehicle in, because I think that is the deterrent. I mean, if people can't drive a 4-wheeler, most of them don't walk in,
Mm-hmm.
So that's been it's frustrating.
Have you personally ran into any of them trespassing before?
I have not. My grandpa, when he was alive, yes.
Okay, you remember that
there's a
interaction
guy,
at all?
There was a guy. He always went for a morning walk. So
Yep.
He walked about half a mile in, walked to the gravel pit, and pretty soon there's just a guy biking in the middle. I mean, this is the middle of nowhere, and this guy's biking up to him, and he goes, what are you doing here? Just biking. Sure. Do you know whose property this is? No. This is he goes, "This is my grandson's, and if he catches you, you're gonna be wishing he wasn't." And he goes, "Where'd you come from?" "Oh, I threw my bike over the gate from the neighbors on the snowmobile trail. I biked down the snowmobile trail." Grandpa goes, "I would suggest you throw the bike back over and we'll leave it alone." He goes, "Because if my grandson finds you, you're not gonna be happy."
Oh my gosh! Recently, you had an incident, didn't you, where you had some items taken from your property?
Yeah. We had so it started out last year. First, the farmer. Well, I didn't even notice mine was messed with because I leave some of my equipment in my picks. I've never had a problem. And the farmer left his tractor up there for a couple months, and they stole all the LED lights off it, the batteries, siphoned out all the diesel fuel, everything. And so then all of a sudden, I told my worker Kyle that lives in my grandparents' house now. I'm like, oh yeah, you can use my tractor. He calls me. He's like, is there supposed to be a battery in this? It's like, what? He sends me a picture. Well, they stole the battery, all the diesel fuel. They cut all my LED lights off. So they've been stealing all that kind of stuff, and yeah, that's frustrating. So it's been about roughly between us and the farmer that rents from us, about $6,000 worth of stuff now.
You know, when you tell me these stories, it's like, bull owner, you're making this up. Like, who the heck goes out there and does this stuff? Ripping. What they all take from your disc? Was it a disc that they took from? What was it?
Well, they took a hydraulic ram off my disc, and all the hoses, and then on Dale's piece of equipment, they stole a 6-foot hydraulic cylinder. 6 foot.
So
like,
it's taking some effort.
I don't even know if I can pick it up.
It's taking some effort.
And then instead of unscrew, at least on the other ones they're nice. They unscrewed everything, unbolted it, so I could just put a battery back in. But on this stuff, they just cut the hoses right off, and then they stole I think it was 8 or 9 tires off of his field cultivator, and it's like, man, this is.
So they're obviously doing some homework in my mind. They're making multiple trips because they're not traveling around with impact wrenches and everything to get this out. They're in my mind like doing like a little scout session, and then they head back, get what they need, and then they come back in the middle of the night with their trucks or whatever.
Well, they're doing it during the day.
During the day?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my Lord.
I mean, the thing is I'm pretty sure it's locals.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you think about it, during the day, like middle of the week, nobody's there.
Yeah, people.
You never see anybody. So the few times that we've busted him, or the farmers busted him coming in, he comes in from the west through the gate, and he doesn't come from the south. So they don't see anyone all day, and then all of a sudden they get back in there, a quarter mile, and all of a sudden, oh my God, there's somebody back here, and they just get out of there. Well, they don't have to. If you go during the day, they don't have to worry about headlights, none of that stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of. But thank God, trail cameras are kind of shutting it down. That's helped me. I mean, I put 2 tactic cams on the driveway now, so plate numbers. One guy was out of Ramsey.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yep. He's out of Ramsey. He was told last year that he could not pick agates on the property, and he just came back anyways.
Agate picker.
They're all agate pickers. That's all they look for. They're all looking for agates. There's nothing else.
So have you, I mean, obviously you said, you did the basic thing, like putting a trail camera on the driveway. Is there anything else that, as far as like in communication with law enforcement stuff, is there anything else that maybe they recommend that you do, or is it just, well, call us if something happens, or did they give you some tactics that you can use moving forward to hopefully help catch these people?
Yeah, and part of it was, so when I've always had some trespassers, right? And I just it hasn't been to the point where I've really gotten real mad because they were leaving my stuff alone. And I just kind of thought it was a thing, you're always going to have some. It's a big property. I got 2 roads, come off main roads and whatever. So yeah, there's some things that I learned this spring, like where my easement comes in through my uncle's. We had a sign up, that said no trespassing, but it was 20 years old and looked like hell, and it wasn't signed, and there was just one little sign, and that's it. So the first time I had a name, license plate, everything, you can't charge them.
Sure.
So you're like, well, oh, what? And he's like, no, you can't charge me. You don't have it legally posted. Well, so we had to go back through and legally post. My uncle went and posted the whole thing, and he put up signs everywhere. And it's kind of funny because if you know my uncle, so he put on there, he puts Marvin Mary Sims, don't ask on the no trespass. I was like, you would put that, The other thing he put up, and I think it's kind of funny, is he put up target range. He just put up some targets that he's shooting at right by the road, or not by the road, but by our field road. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a deterrent. There's people up there shooting guns, so maybe they won't come in. I don't, you know what I mean? But it's the main thing is you just got. I think you have to have a boundary. You got to have them gates. You got to have the fence. Because I've had it for years with the snowmobile trail. As soon as the snow is gone, there's someone ripping down it with a 4-wheeler side by side, that kind of stuff. And muzzle loader. That's when a lot of my trespassers have been on. Because I suppose they figure everybody's done for the year, kind of, and then it's got to be local. Like, some of these people have to be local. They got to know that I'm not there or something like that, and I mean, I do muzzle load, but they always go during the week.
Yeah, and this is lake country up here too, so like you said, maybe there's people from, like you said, Ramsey or whatever that are up here,
right,
at their cabin or whatever, and they're going out exploring. They have no clue what the heck's going on up here,
right.
and whatever. But I don't know. I guess to me, it's either people who don't give a rip, losers out there trying to take stuff that's yours and sell it in return to make money.
Yep. It's all quick
because they're not out there.
I mean, most
working,
of the stuff,
whatever.
Most of the stuff they're taking it's quick sale items.
Yeah.
And they're not working. I mean, I shouldn't say it, but a lot of them, I just don't think they're great individuals overall. They're
Well, if you're stealing from people, no, you're not.
They're looking for hand-me-outs and everything,
Yeah, that's frustrating. So, you kind of talked about some of the different strategies that you're going to implement this year. What kind of tying everything in together here? I did want to hit on something, because going back to your property, owning it with your sibling and Mike, what advice would you give people? Like, some of the things that kind of caught you off guard when it comes to owning a property with someone else. Maybe some things that you didn't think about right away that all of a sudden you have to take into consideration now, and you can kind of go anywhere with that.
One thing is, I guess you don't really realize, when I owned my 161st, you have all the rights to it. You can let anyone come and go as you please. You don't got to think about anybody else's feelings or that kind of stuff. So, like, right away, it was kind of, one thing you don't think about. It's like, well, I can't just let Joe go out there and hunt without talking to Mike and Sarah or this or that, and I think one thing you got to be careful on that I have been careful on is, because if, let's say, I want Joe and Travis and Mike to come and hunt, right? Well, then I have to worry about, it's fair. They can bring 3 people, you know what I mean, kind of deal. So
no doubt.
You just don't have the free range that I guess you don't even think about that a little bit when you go in with partnership at first. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a hard thing, and then you got to think about how you're going to set it up, like payments on the property, that kind of stuff. Who's paying for what, like I take care of everything on our property pretty much. But we have a joint account set up, so we pay extra when we make our land payments. So we have kind of a kiddie fund. So when I'm brush mowing or that kind of stuff, I can pay for fuel for that property out of my skid loader. Like, if we do food plots, we take it out of there. That's something that you should think about, because, there's always probably going to be one half that's going to be doing a lot more, which, like my family lives, they live in Northfield. So they're not going to be up here all the time.
Right.
And that's what I love to do. But that's something I would really tell people to think about, like improvements to the property, that kind of stuff. That would be my my biggest thing. Another thing that we touched on with Mike and Sarah, but we never actually finalized on it, and we need to figure out what we're gonna do. Eventually, like, they don't have kids.
Yeah.
So let's say in 20 years the property's worth, it went up $150,000 since we bought it. Are we buying them up? Like, or if something goes south, is there a buyout? What do you buy it out for? The price we bought it for? My kids are going to get my half, obviously, but where's the other half going to go? Or how does that all, that could make a mess later on. And I would encourage it, which we're gonna plan on doing it too, and we just haven't. You need to figure it out when you're on good terms, because by the time, if all of a sudden we stop getting along, it's gonna be a disaster. And now you just spent $500,000 for not, like essentially, it's a disaster.
Yep. No,
that'd be my number one to set up, is make sure you have everybody protected.
Yep.
Not just my family, all the parties. It should be written up rock solid, and we should have done it right away. Thank God we're on good terms yet, so I think we'll get it figured out. But that'd be my number one, is that I would do it, up front.
No, that makes sense. There's a lot of moving parts there when you have multiple parties that are invested that much into it.
And another one that we talked about was if anyone could build on the property.
Oh, sure.
A cabin, any of that stuff. And that was talked about right away, and I said I don't want, because it's in the center of our property, so I don't want a cabin in there.
Yeah.
But we talked about that right out of the gate, and that's a big one, because what if I want it, and they, because then your taxes are going up, all that stuff, and
yeah,
that's a big.
It's high enough the way it is,
right?
I
So there's a lot of variables in all that. There really is.
No doubt. But the one cool thing is that it was your grandparents' property, and you guys are able to continue that, and you guys have shared so many good memories out there, and
yes.
and I know your grandparents are extremely happy that you guys were able to take it over and just continue the tradition that they've kind of started up there, which was phenomenal. And then to kind of finalize things here, if people are having issues with trespassers themselves, what advice do you have for those people out there?
I mean, my thing is that really helped is calling law enforcement, really. Getting them up there, making a presence. And if you do have a lot of problems, you can get put on the Morrison, or whatever county you're in, you can get I think it's called the watch list or something. You can call them, and if there's a sheriff going by in the area and you're on the list, they can just pop right into your property or drive around it. You can give them permission to drive into it.
Sure.
But I think it's helped a lot to slow it down, just having a police presence.
Yep.
Like the few times I've had them up there, they drive around. They're right there. People are going to talk. Well, there's cops up. You know what I mean? And they've been really good about it. And none of them have complained like it's not a waste of time. They said it's their job, and I think I'd get law enforcement involved, or at least have them to have a presence up there more. That's been a big thing.
Have you ever thought about running electricity through your fence to keep your cattle in?
I have thought, after a bunch of my stuff got stolen, about putting a spike strip in the middle of my gravel road.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But I was worried about, the first time that the farmer would drive in there, I'd be paying for $20,000 worth of tires.
Well, then all of a sudden somebody comes on your property, hits a spike strip, and hits a tree, then you're at fault, even though they're trespassing or something stupid like that. But it's never the person's fault that's breaking the law in the first place.
I think you just gotta have a barrier, pretty much. You gotta have it so they can't just drive in with an ATV, side by side, truck, any of that.
Make it difficult.
And once they do that, what are they going to do? Park on the road and then walk? Right. No, they're not going to do that. They want the easy route,
How about any advice for everyone? That's what we're going to close down with. Any advice or words of wisdom for all the listeners out there, because people are starting to get amped up with the hunting season, somewhat around the corner. Like I've paid attention to like the podcasts and how many views we're getting and whatnot, and they're starting to spike, and that tells me there's interest in hunting right now. Any words of wisdom going into this season that you want to leave our listeners with here tonight?
I guess my biggest thing would be is, don't put so much pressure on yourselves for hunting season. Kind of relax a little bit. There's going to be ups and downs. I had like 6-7 years there where I was killing a buck every single year. It was easy. But then you kind of I feel like I forced the issue that I got to keep killing a buck every year. Got to keep killing a buck. Just go out there and have fun. I did it last year. I kind of slowed down, kind of enjoyed the woods, enjoyed my time with my kids, my family, my wife bow hunting, my friends bow hunting. Just slow down and enjoy it.
Yep.
And good things will come. I really believe in that. I mean, when you really force the issue that, this food plot didn't come up, my hunting season's over. Just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I did for so many years, and then a couple of years there, I was just putting so much pressure on myself. You know, actually after I wounded that big one. You know, then I was. You're trying to prove something. You don't have anything to prove. You bought the land, or you leased the land, or you hunt the land for a reason, and it's sitting out here enjoying the outdoors.
Yes.
It's not about, oh, I got a 160-incher, or I got shot a fawn. It's about who you're with, when you're with. You know, my son, I've shot a doe with him, and that's some of the most exciting times of my life. He's 5 years old. Enjoy the moments and not put the pressure on. That would be my biggest thing, is just enjoy bow hunting, enjoy the outdoors, enjoy rifle hunting. You know, that's a whole different aspect with usually it's more of a family thing, right?
Yep.
But remember why you hunt or do food plots or any of that. Even like this, you do it because you enjoy it, you love it, right?
Yes, sir. That's a great point. And I know, like this past year here, putting in my food plot, and I heard somebody else mention this one time too. Like it seems like every time you're putting in food plots, or you're working up the field, or you have corn planted and you sprayed it with some chemical that ends up killing all your corn.
That's too soon. That's too soon. Just remember it's fun. Just remember it's fun. I just got to replant this weekend, but remember it's just fun, all right?
With that, we're going to shut her down.
I have no weeds either.
No weeds and
no corn.
All right, we're shutting her down. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a good night.
Oh boy, struck a nerve there, I guess. I don't know. I might be in the same situation too. I don't know. I got some beans that I sprayed and they look a little curled up right now. So hopefully they're able to rebound and survive yet. But time will tell here. But I just wanted to thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Pete, for coming on and giving us the insight on all the issues that you've kind of ran into and your family has ran into throughout the past. And hopefully some of these tips and tactics will help you guys who are dealing with trespassers yourselves. So with that, I just want to end with just thanking our partners, which is Arctic Shield, Domain Outdoor, J&R Outdoors, Skullcraft, The Fish Guide, Tact Cam, and Fourth Arrow Camera Arms. I hope you guys are having a great day, and thanks for listening.